If you're moving to St. Petersburg, Florida, or thinking about it, one of the scariest questions you're carrying around right now, and probably the one you can't shake at night, is, what if I pick the wrong neighborhood and my family doesn't feel safe? Well, today I'm going to share the safest neighborhoods in St. Pete, according to the crime statistics, and more importantly, show you how to prove it to yourself. So you're not just taking my word for it or some scary headlines word for it either. Because let's be honest, that's how uninformed people relocate or make life-size decisions. And by the end of this video, you, my friends, will not be uninformed. You might not be a pro, but you'll know exactly where to look and how to use some incredible free tools that I'm going to share to help you pick the best and safest neighborhoods for you and your family. And let's be real here, almost everybody researches safety the exact same way, and it's backwards. They watch the news, they read one alarming story, they drop a pin on a crime map, see a cluster of red dots, and their stomach drops. And then they make one of the biggest decisions of their life off of feeling, not facts. But there's a better way. And in the next few minutes, I'll give you the exact tools to check any neighborhood, the 3 rules for reading them without scaring yourself to death, and one test that almost nobody does that will tell you for certain whether a specific St. Pete neighborhood is safer or more dangerous than the street you live on right now. And please stick around for that last one, because that is the whole game. And if you're wondering why I care about helping you get this right, over the last 5 years, I've had a first-class seat and watched families make this move beautifully. And I've watched a few make it stressed out of their minds. And the stressed out ones almost always have the same thing in common. They let their fear do the research for them. And they end up picking a neighborhood by avoiding the places the news scare them about, instead of actually looking into the numbers. And a year or so later, some of them have come to realize the areas they crossed off their list, they were statistically safer than the town that they moved from, which is crazy to say. And that's a rough thing to find out a year or two later, right? And if you're wondering who I am or why you should be listening to what I have to say, I totally get it. My name is Juan Alcala, and a little over 7.5 years ago, my wife Kate and I packed up our family of 5, sold almost everything we owned, moved 1,200 miles south here to the greater Tampa Bay area, where we have been loving it ever since. And that's awesome. However, we were scared out of our minds when we made that move originally too. As a matter of fact, I ended up buying my home sight unseen. That's a whole nother conversation. That is not for everybody, and I get it. So when I talk about the fear of what if I pick the wrong neighborhood, first of all, I want you to know that we went through it. And as a matter of fact, I run a real estate team, and we've helped over 200 families make that same relocation a reality in the last 5 years alone. Trust me, I get it. And there's one more thing I want to share before we dig in. If you're already locked into a specific neighborhood that you've been doing the homework on and you just want the data, we'll put all of the links to all the resources that we use in this video in the description. Trust me, those things become extremely helpful when you're about to make this move. Now, the first thing I want to start with is why your gut is most likely lying to you. So as we get rolling, here's where most people get tripped up, and it's not their fault. Honestly, it's how our brains are wired. There's a thing psychologists call the availability heuristic. Now, don't worry about the name. All it means is we judge how risky something is by how easily a scary example pops into our head. And what pops in your head easily? The stuff that you saw on the news, the dramatic story, the over-the-top headlines. So let's apply this to the real world. Let's think about your current neighborhood. You might have lived there for 5, 10, even 15 years, and you judge it by your own experience. The morning walks, the neighbors you wave to, it feels safe, so you call it safe. Then you think about a neighborhood in St. Pete you've never set foot in, and you judge it by a news clip, a Facebook comment, a red dot on a crime map. You see the problem? Can you guess what that does? You're comparing a feeling about a place to a headline about another. That's not comparison, that's a setup. And it happens to me, y'all. I totally understand. When I see a scary story about somewhere I don't know, my brain does the exact same thing. We all do it. And I'll give you a real world example. We're gonna take our family out west this year. I have a conference that I have to attend in Anaheim, and then I'm gonna meet my family. We're gonna go to Lake Tahoe. We're gonna go to Yosemite. We were planning on going to Big Sur in San Francisco, but we've heard nothing but really scary stories about downtown San Francisco. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I have no interest in exposing my kids to the type of things that I've been hearing. But the real question has to be asked, is that fair? Or am I just taking what the news headlines are and applying them to our life? Odds are that's probably the truth. Both are probably true, and there's probably a way to navigate that safely with my family, but I don't know the path. So the logic here is simple. If the way you measure your old neighborhood is different from the way you measure the new one, you'll always think the new one is more dangerous, even when it isn't statistically. And what that actually means for you is this. The fear you're feeling right now might not be about St. Petersburg at all. It just might be about the fact that St. Petersburg is unfamiliar. And those are two completely different problems, and honestly, only one of them should ever affect a real decision. And knowing that our brains are hardwired this way and we have bias doesn't fix it. We need tools that don't care about our feelings. So I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use to move here, and also the ones that we share with our clients and they have loved, because this is where it gets good. So here are some of my favorite tools, and I'm going to kind of rank them best to most basic, if you will, and exactly how to use each one. Number one, and this is the one I'd start with, is the Pinellas County Crime Viewer. This is the official one, if you will. It pulls straight from St. Pete Police Department and other local agencies. You type in the address, you pick how wide you want to look, half mile, 1 mile, up to 3 miles, and then you filter by the type of crime you actually care about. And why does that matter? Well, because theft is a different conversation than someone beating someone up in an alleyway, right? And this tool lets you separate them instead of lumping them into a scary pile. Now, I know what you're thinking, crime is crime, but yes and no, and let me help you see the forest through the trees, if you will. We just talked about the difference between theft and assault, as an example. We live in a metropolitan area that has a few million visitors each year. It is high in tourism, which automatically puts you in a situation where if people want to take advantage of people, that's a great place to do it. What do I mean? Petty theft happens. And I'll give you guys a real world example. When I go to our beaches are littered with people who both live here and tourists. Y'all, who do you think is an easy target for people leaving their goods like their wallet, their purse, and everything sitting by the sand? And trust me, I am not someone who thinks that that is okay in any way, shape, or form. But let's be real. The locals don't bring that stuff to the beach. Who brings it is tourists. Tourists also attract the unscrupulous from time to time. And when you live with 250,000 people, that is just going to be reality. If you compare your suburb to a metropolitan area, you've already got it backwards, and those things aren't going to line up. And again, I'm not excusing it, but I want to kind of talk through what you might see when you're looking at those things, right? When you look in the downtown area specifically, if you see a lot of things like petty theft, well, people leave their cars unlocked, they leave their really expensive items sitting in the front seat. And again, there is no excuse for it, and it doesn't happen as often in here as it did where I moved from in Detroit. That was just wild. And again, I'm not making an excuse for it, but I want to separate those things, because people doing dumb things doesn't amount to an unsafe area. That amounts to knuckleheads living in your backyard. That is a very different thing than living in a place that isn't safe because you could be harmed, injured, or even worse. Hopefully that makes sense. So the number 2 resource that I think you should use is the St. Pete Police Department's own state map and community crime map. It has the same idea. It's straight from the police reports. Again, these are facts, not opinions. And a great thing to do is cross-check that data versus the county viewer that we just shared. When the 2 official sources agree on the same thing, you can trust what you're seeing. Rather than the headlines, you're seeing the truth. Now, the number 3 tool is the Quick Grade site. This is Crime Grade, Neighborhood Scout, Spot Crime. Neighborhood Scout is included in Zillow. That's a tool that you see, or like niche.com. Those are 2 really good resources that can help give you some more insights on communities. As a matter of fact, niche.com also has public review. Now, I always tell people, be careful when people are able to go in and just randomly post anything. Now, why do I say that? And what does that actually mean? Well, reviews, as we all know, people can review things even if they don't live there. That's one component of it. But most importantly, looking for patterns is a great way to use those sources rather than just listening to every single review. I personally, 5-star reviews are great. 1-star reviews are usually like they had just a terrible experience for whatever reason, and it doesn't apply to my life. Where I tend to find the most value as a human is that 3 to 4-star area. That really shows a lot. Someone actually usually cares, and there's usually a story included. It's not always the fact, but I would look at it. And why I like these these tools is they are fast, they work really well. You know, they'll usually put a letter grade on a neighborhood in a couple seconds, and they're useful. But the thing I want to caution against and give you my honest take on is a letter grade is someone else's opinion about data. It really should only be a starting point, not necessarily an answer. I would use them to find areas that may be worth a closer look, then go verify on the official tools. That's a great way to approach this. And the last tool, and this is one to be careful with, the FBI Crime Data Explorer. It's great for big picture, state level stuff, but the FBI reports crime by police agencies and not by city. So in my personal opinion, it's honestly a little bit too blurry to be useful for a specific neighborhood. And I'm sharing that with you so you don't necessarily waste an entire evening on the wrong tool. I'm giving all of them. You can use whatever one you want. I'm just sharing in my experience having used these tools many times before. And if you remember earlier when I said I was going to share with you the thing that almost nobody does, and this is the whole video really, I call it the same tool rule. So before you judge a single St. Pete neighborhood, go to your current neighborhood through the exact same tool, the one you live in right now. That's the one that feels safe to you, or maybe it doesn't, but I'm hoping it does. And why would you do that? Because now you've got an apples to apples approach. Same tool, same crime types, same radius, same scale. So now when you look at the Old Northeast or historic Uptown, you're not comparing it to a feeling anymore. You're comparing it to a number you actually trust because it's the number for your own street. Meaning, how does my neighborhood, my house, compare statistically to where I am considering moving? And I'll be honest with you, I usually do this live on our buyer strategy session calls where we open up Zoom and walk people through the area. And this usually surprises the heck out of them. When we run their hometown or their neighborhood through the tool and go, wait, that's my number, suddenly the St. Pete neighborhood they were scared of doesn't look so scary anymore. And it looks more familiar, or at least what they're accustomed to. And that's what real research does. It doesn't just give you information or data. It takes the fear that was running the show and puts it in the back seat. And that's confidence that you can actually rely on. But don't forget, a tool is only as good as you know how to use it. And this is where people tend to scare themselves with good information. So now I want to show you how to read this information correctly. Now here are 3 rules for reading any crime map without spiraling into a doom loop. And trust me, these do matter. Rule number 1, use the rate, not the raw crime count. A neighborhood with more people will have more incidents. That's just math, not danger. Always look at the rate per 1,000 residents, not the total number of crime, because a big popular area can look scary from raw numbers, but be perfectly safe per person. Number 2, separate property crime from violent crime. They are not the same thing, therefore they should not have the same fear. A stolen package off someone's porch and a violent crime are both crimes on the map, but they should weigh completely different in your decision. And most of what lights up any crime map anywhere in the United States is property crime. Number 3, trends beat the snapshot. 1 month alone is not going to tell you hardly anything. Look at the direction over a few years. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? That's the real question. And let me show you why these 3 rules matter with a real example. When I was researching St. Pete's overall number, I found 2 reputable sources that flat out contradicted each other. One said the violent crime rate was about average for an American city. Another said it was above average. Same city, same year, different answer. Now, the old way of researching, the fear way, you'd find the scary one, screenshot it, send it to your spouse, and panic. But now you know better. You say which one used rate versus the raw count, meaning how many crimes actually took place. What was the time period? And then you go run the official tool yourself. That contradiction isn't a reason to be scared. It's the exact reason why you shouldn't necessarily trust a single grade resource, right? And here's where this really kind of pays off. When you run St. Pete the right way, here's what actually shows up. St. Petersburg just had its lowest number of homicides in nearly 60 years. 10 in all of 2025 with 250,000 people. A low the city hasn't seen since 1967. That's not me spinning it, that's the police chief. And when you grade it neighborhood by neighborhood, roughly 88% of St. Pete's 124 neighborhoods come back rated A or B for safety. That stands out. The standout, the ones that consistently grade near the top, that's going to be Snell Isle, Old Northeast, Crescent Lake, Historic Kenwood, Short Acres, Terra Verde, and out towards the quieter pockets like Allendale and Destin Heights. Snell Isle alone runs a violent crime rate of more than 90% below the national average. But notice what just happened? I gave you the neighborhoods last, on purpose. Because if I just handed you a list to start, you'd be right back to trusting someone else's homework. Now you've got the list and you can check it yourself. That's the difference between feeling reassured for 10 minutes and feeling confident for good that you're about to make a great decision. So let's zoom out to that 30,000 foot view. The problem we started with wasn't, is St. Pete safe? The real problem was that you've been handed a feeling dressed up as research, and feelings make for terrible negotiators when the stakes are your family's safety. Doing it the right way isn't about finding a neighborhood with zero crime. That place doesn't exist here or anywhere else you've ever lived. It's about being able to look your spouse in the eye and say, I checked, I ran our current street through the same tool, I know exactly what we're walking into. That's not hoping you got it right, that's knowing. And that peace of mind is the entire reason you're moving in the first place. Now, if you want a hand actually doing this, matching the way you want to live in the neighborhoods that are a great fit for your ideal lifestyle with someone who will show you the real numbers, and that's exactly what me and my team do every single day. If you look down below, you'll see a link down there that says that Tampa Life/contact. That will ask you just a few basic questions about what you're trying to accomplish. Then it will give you access to my personal calendar where you can schedule a Zoom call. We'll jump on Zoom. I'll open up Google Maps. We'll walk you through the areas, help you identify those neighborhoods that are matching that ideal lifestyle. I'll help you to all these tools and our resources and give you a clear path on how to make this move safely for you and your family. If that interests you, like I said, the link is down below. If you've got any other questions, feel free to put those in the comments. And hey, if you got value out of today's video, please hit the subscribe button, hit that like button while you're down there too. And I'm gonna put 2 more videos up here about St. Petersburg that are gonna help you make this move a reality. And as always, until next time, go out and live that Tampa life.